Allah. Allah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Ahmaduhu wa asta'inuhu wa astadihi wa astaghfiruhu wa umminu bihi jalla wa ala wa la akfuruhu wa ashhadu wa la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Arsalahu bil huda wa din al-haq liyudhhiruhu ala din kullihi walau karihal mushrikun. All praise belongs to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His help, His assistance, and His guidance. We believe in Him and do not disbelieve in Him. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and messenger. Allah sent him, that is Muhammad, with Deen al-Haq, the religion of truth, the way of truth. And this way of life, known as Islam, will rise to its proper position in this world, whether the mushriks like it or not. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna Allaha yahmaru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha anil fashai wal munkari wal baghi ya'ithukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Allah commands justice, the doing of good, and liberality to kith and kin. He forbids all shameful deeds and injustice and rebellion. He instructs you that you may receive admonition. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. فَمَنْ يَرِيدِ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. Those whom Allah in His plan willeth to guide, He opens their breast to Islam. This sadr, or this chest cavity, is what they call the sadr in Islam. In Arabic. And in many cases, when that's used, it's used for the breast, is used for the heart, and what have you. Like you'll never hear that the Quran was revealed to the mind of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was always revealed to the heart or to the chest. Alam nashra laka sadrak, right? So this is the center of life for the human being, is being able to take in breath. Also being able to take in not only fresh air, but new air, life-giving air, rejuvenating air, to aspire for something better, aspiration. In Spanish, they call a vacuum cleaner aspiradora, because it aspires, it sucks up, you know what I mean? So when Allah has a plan for us, right? And remember, Allah have a plan for us, but Allah not going to make us fulfill that plan. This life is an opportunity. This life is an opportunity to just come here and cruise along and die, to jump in life and go for broke, go for big. That's what we used to talk, Because in the old days, they had what was called big niggas and little niggas. And if you remember all the old, well, they wouldn't be old, well, they'd be old to me too, blaxploitation movies, they always had a Mr. Big. Remember that idea? In whatever town, we're going to go see Mr. Big. And that was the way people thought at that time, that they had people that was big and they had people that was little. And so I had a couple of friends, and another one of my friends, which was from West Oakland, they was all from West Oakland in those days. So anyway, he would say, this was a friend that we grew up together. His people moved out and they lived on 79th Avenue. We lived on 85th Avenue and all that stuff. And our whole family was friends of each other. And we went our separate ways, and later on, we found ourselves in the game. And so it so happens that one of my friends, that friend, had become one of the biggest pimps in Oakland. And so, of course, he was older than I was. And so we knew each other very well. And so he saw me hanging around with a couple of Negroes. They had everything. They had their hair swooped to the side. They had alligators. They had brand new Cadillacs. They had all that. And so, but he told me, he said, so-and-so, those is little niggas. That's all he had to tell me. Those two niggas there, they're pretending. They little niggas, And of course, I kind of picked it up, but him saying it just let me know that they're not fraudulent. They have Cadillacs and they have the new stuff like everybody else, but they little. And in the old days, to be big was what anybody wanted to be. And to be little, that was terrible. If somebody said, that nigga there is little, that was terrible. But now we come into Islam, we come into this life we live in, we have a chance to be something, And then you look at what life is going on and you say, man, that what's happening there is big. But to be a part of that bigness, it's going to cost you different. You already been in the game and you done dealt with boss man. So if you get hooked up with that, it's going to cost you. Because you're going to be big. And you don't have no longevity contract or nothing like that. That means you may be here a few minutes or you may get a shot at getting old. But whatever you do, you get involved in that, you're going to either have to get super big, right, or you gone. And that's why with this thing, فَمَنْ يَرِيدِ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. Those whom in Allah's plan He willeth to guide, He opens the sadr, the breast to Islam. And when that's opened up, you only got one way to go now. You only go for big. You're not attracted to teenage stuff. You're just not attracted to it. It don't make sense. It don't add up. And so you automatically go for big. Plus, maybe it was a part of your culture already. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. O you believe, fear Allah as he should be feared, and do not die except in the state of Islam. وَتَسِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And hold fast all together by the rope which Allah stretches out to you, and be not divided amongst yourselves. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat lil nasi ta'muruna bil ma'rufi wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. You're the best peoples ever raised up for mankind, enjoining what is right and forbidding what is wrong, and believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aqulu qawli hadha wa astaghfirullah li wa lakum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala khairil mursaleen. Muhammadin an-Nabi al-Ummi. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Yaqulu Allahu ta'ala fil Quran al-Kareem. Inna Allaha wa malaikatuhu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. Sallu alayhi wasalimu tasliman. Today's subject will be centered around certain events that's happening right now. September the 20th, or actually it's dated for the 22nd, 1980 was the beginning of the biggest and the longest war of our time. That was a war with Iraq and Iran. And a lot of people don't talk about it too much now. But, and today is the period of people, the numbers are kept low right now because of this virus, but people are still walking to Najaf and Karbala. That's in Iraq. And within a few days, it would be a day which is called Arba'in. Arba'in means 40, the 40th day. And this is the 40th day of the celebration of the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. Now, when this revolution in Iran happened, 1979, there was many predictions about how long it would last, because it was dealing with what was considered then boss man, right? He just lost in Vietnam, though, 75, 79, he was fresh. And so, but the prestige of America was very, very strong. And America had a history through gunboat diplomacy and subversion of destroying anybody that stood in its way. Now, Vietnam happened to be the first time one of the little guys held on, right, long enough to establish himself. And they did. And you could see the helicopters coming into Saigon and picking up people. And finally it ended with the people trying to hang on the helicopters and get the last bit out. The ones that couldn't get out, they turned into what's called the boat people. I don't know, I know y'all may not remember. The boat people was when people filled up part of the ocean with boats running away from Vietnam because the communists had taken over. And so that was a victory for them, and it was a problem for the great United States of America. A few years after that, after the revolution in Iran, they had a so-called hostage crisis. And that hostage crisis went on for 400 and something, 20 something days, a long time. Every night you turn on the TV, there's Ted Koppel and there's the whole foolishness about what's going on in Iran. And everybody I knew predicted that the government of Iran was going to fall. They was going to fall in a hurry. And I didn't know a whole lot about it, but I told the people, I was still at the penitentiary, I was the Imam, and I told them, no. I said, those people I was talking about, Shias, have something about jihad, as much as I knew then. Actually, it was martyrdom. So when I came home from the penitentiary, the attitude I had about them and them learning about it, we got along well together. Pretty soon I was on the circuit, going all over the country, eventually all over the world, talking about that subject. And about the same time, when I was in the pen, they had a rescue mission. They wanted to rescue the so-called hostages. And so they got a bunch of helicopters together, them big giant helicopters, and they flew into Iran, and they had a plan that they was going to fly on in. They knew where they was keeping them at, and they was going to surprise them, and they was going to take their hostages, and they was going to cause a lot of trouble in Iran. Well, that didn't happen that way. It didn't play out like that. As those helicopters was coming over and they got into Iran, they was flying over the desert, and they got hit by a dust storm. And the dust storm had them crashing into each other. And nobody shot them down. They crashed into each other, all of them, and burned up. And they told Imam about it, and he said, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alam tara kayfa fa'alla rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Alam yajal kaidahum fi tadlil. Wa arsala alayhim ta'iran ababil. Tarmihim bihijaratim min sijil. Don't you know what happened to the people of the elephant? They had a plan, but them big giant elephants was taken down or destroyed or held back by Arbabil, the flight of birds, right? And so at that time, that was a crucial time in Islamic history. It was the first time in modern history that there was a successful revolution, Islamic Revolution. And it surprised everybody because nobody knew anything about Iran. They was looking for a revolution to come from Egypt or Pakistan. That's what believe it or not, they was looking for Jamaat Islami in Pakistan and all those groups, or they was looking for Ikhwan al-Muslimin, right, in Egypt for this Islamic revival, because it was an Islamic revival going on. But I'm trying to tell you this, there had to be certain characteristics when this revolution happened. It's going to have to be, according to Maulana Maududi, he had a 9 category what it would need to do. But one of the things, not only to spread Islam and but I think maybe it's number 8, it would have to be able to withstand the global war against it. The global war against it. Now, Maulana Maududi passed away in 1980, but when he came over here in 73, he spent time with the brothers. In fact, most of the brothers was here from D.C. They went up to New York to see him. And from then on, that Pakistani influence, Maulana Maududi, which was head of the Islamic movement at that time, was telling all his people to come over here, and now they're over here, been over here, like ICNA, Islamic Society, Islamic Circle of North America. They're here, and they were told, get with the Negro. Them Negroes, hey man, them guys, that's the future of Islam in America. Anyway, we had to go through certain changes. We are going through big changes right now. And I want to relate just a few things to give you an idea of what we've been going through and maybe what the future holds. Only Allah knows the future. But we can at least talk about a past that we know something about. So I want to show you a couple of pictures. There's whole booklets. This is from book number 5. And this is from Basra. Basra is in southern Iraq. The temperature in Basra right now, or right then, was 120 degrees, 115 degrees. And you know what they did with these? Because Iraq was using poison gas. And they was trying to protect themselves from poison gas. It hadn't been used since World War I. And they got the chemicals from Germany and you know, they got spy satellites of where Iranian troops was from, you know, from the Americans. They got supplies. They got all that from the Americans. They got French Exocet missiles. They had $50 billion from Saudi Arabia, $33 billion from another one of the Arab countries. They had Egyptian pilots, Jordanian regulars, right? They had Russian T-72 tanks, right? They had everything. In other words, when the revolution in Iran happened in 1979, the world got organized to fight against that revolution. And what they needed was someone to carry it out. And that was Saddam Hussein, their next door neighbor. And they supported him, gave him everything he needed. And right now, if one of the people over there make a mistake, hey, they'll blow up the whole country. But Iraq at that time, 87, was on their side. That was their homeboy. They shot a missile. The Iraqis shot a missile, and the Iranians had got good enough and they deflected the missile. They don't tell you about this in the news. And that missile hit the Stark. And the Stark was a, American ship. And it killed 38 American sailors. But since Saddam at that time was on their side, no problem. No problema, right? It's 1988, 87 or 88. Anyway, Imagine yourself, now I run with plastic, from here down, and it makes you sweat a whole lot, especially in the summer. Good God Almighty, in fact, you can't wear it sometimes. Imagine trying to wear in 120 degrees, 115 on average, which me and you can't stand, right, unless you was raised in Arizona or somewhere, right? Imagine just putting these uniforms on. Guess what they was doing? Taking them off, because it was harder keeping this on than the poison gas that was killing them. And they got all the poison gas, Iraq did, from the West. This is a picture of the Revolutionary Guards. You can see they only even have helmets or nothing. But this might have been besieged. Besieged is the volunteers. That means they get a little bit of training and they go out. And I was giving speeches all day, every day, all over the United States and outside of the United States on this cause. Because that's what, now, wasn't too many other people doing it, one or two. But they were hired by the Iranians. I was the only one doing it fi sabilillah, and because I believed in the cause. I didn't get no salary for doing it. But I was running around all to every university in the country talking about this. And Iran was taking so much attacks every day. They get a new president, they'd blow him up and kill him. They get a prime minister, they blow him up and kill him. Right? They get a whole new crew. This is like 80, 81, 82. They was wearing Iran every time it was a summertime period where they had a new president, a new prime minister, one after another. In one of the bombings, 72 people got martyred. Now, for Shias, 72 is a magic number, because there was 72 martyrs at Karbala. Now I start blending this stuff together. In the early part of Islamic history, when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, then they had Abu Bakr, they had Umar, as the Caliph. Then the period of Uthman, Uthman was assassinated. And then it comes the time of Ali. And when Ali, the fourth Caliph, he was the first Imam of the Shias. And eventually he achieved martyrdom. He had two sons, Hassan and Hussein. Hassan made a treaty type with the criminal element. And then they poisoned him. Actually, they had his wife poison him. So don't never sit up and say, that's the brother's wife, so she got to be all right. It's different than that in Islam. If you want to suspect somebody, well, anyway, so don't worry about that. Let me tell you. Then they had the other son, Hussein. Hussein, right now, they're going to Karbala and Najaf, and they're going to celebrate. Now, this year is not too many people. But before, for Arba'in, like 2-3 years ago, y'all remember the numbers, 25 million, so, right? Some was talking about 30 million and all of that. Whatever it was packed with people. Why that was important to me was because some of the brothers in the old days, in the 80s and what have you, was hinting, why don't you African Americans have some religious remembrance programs like that? Like we have. Because they were telling me that those remembrance programs is one of the catalysts for the revolution, right? You would have a terrible event, and then everybody would celebrate that. Then 40 days later, you would have another Arbain of whatever martyrdom and whatever. So in Iran, what happened before, about the Shah's time, they kept having one set of martyrdoms and killings after another. And then in another 40 days after that, so Iran became just fired up, juiced up. At the time of the revolution, Imam Khomeini gave a fatwa. He says it's haram to stay in your house today. In other words, everybody got to get out and demonstrate, and they did. And they brought the Shah down. That was probably the last people's revolution in modern times. Maybe they might have one somewhere, but technology is too sophisticated now for people to mass all those people right under the eye of Shaitan Bazur, the big Satan. Let me speed up. What happened was the people came out by the hundreds of thousands, and all during the war, everybody was on the side of Iraq. Nobody was on the side of Iran. And there was only one neutral country in the Arab world, and that was Syria. Syria did not fight against Iran, but everybody else did. Even though Syria is a Ba'ath party, just like Iraq was, they didn't fight against them. Right now, today, Syria is an ally of Iran. And we're going to get back to that in a minute. But we're in a period right now where the world is going through a serious transition. It's happening very fast. When that transition comes, or it builds up over decades, maybe hundreds of years, but when it start coming to a peak, things start happening fast. That's where we are right now. Things are happening very fast. And you can't turn on the TV or the radio without hearing something brand new. The last thing today, this morning, was about the information that they got about how many people was being killed right in Afghanistan, and how the U.S. and Britain was paying off the people, right? They got a Freedom of Information Act type thing, and they got that information. This is what I'm hearing this morning. And so, the Freedom of Information Act had a lot of, they had to notate if they gave somebody so-and-so, and they put a little information there. The hundreds and the thousands of people that was killed in Afghanistan by the U.S. is unbelievable. So the United States have had the ability to cause death and destruction all over the world, especially in the Muslim world. It has the power and the ability to disunite people. But it does not have the power to collect people together for good and to rebuild the people or to enhance the goodness of the people. They specialized in death and destruction. And we're the main target, right? So if they shoot down the Vincennes, shoot down an Iranian airliner and kill 290 people in 88, something like that, the U.S. don't even apologize. It's a civilian airliner. But they say, we just shot it down. And we ain't sorry. Can you imagine? Look at the arrogance. Don't worry. We prayed here many times. And our main prayer was, oh Allah, make a fool out of boss man. Make fun of boss man. Discombobulate, dismember. Make a fool out of boss. Make boss man a laughing stock of the world. Is that what we was right here saying? Yes, it was. I'm telling you. Y'all remember. That's what we always say. We didn't never say, blow up America, destroy America. Well, we ain't going to ask for nothing like that, actually, because our aunties and uncles and everybody else is right here, right? So, but we want to destroy that invincibility of the American psychic. And it has been whipped bad. America been whipped bad in Afghanistan. America's been whipped in Iraq, right? The American forces, no matter how much weapon they have, if it's in Yemen, the poorest Arab country in the world fighting the richest Arab country in the world, to get weapons from everybody in the West, right? And they still here. They still here, holding on. It's a good sign, right? If Iran been leading this struggle through wars, being on front page every day, being marked off for destruction economically, socially, been cut off and isolated, embargoed, right? In every which way. And that country is making more progress than anybody in the region right now. If everybody else is buying technology, spending all their resources buying technology from America and from Zionists and from all of those people, right? Iran has become number 3 or 4, maybe 5 in drone technology all over the world. Yes, it has. So Iran got so good, it's been over 10 years ago, but they sent one of them big bad drones over in that area, and Iran just stole it from them. And the Americans said it crashed, but Iranian TV was showing the scenes where it was landing. They had it landing, you know. And then they re-engineered that bad boy. Re-engineered just means that they just took it apart and put a mark on it. This is part number 1. Took the part off, part number 2, laid it all out. Then they reproduced all of those parts, right? And they laid them all out and reassembled those parts. That put them way out in front in drones. And now, it's only last year, they shoot down one of the biggest, baddest American spy ships, whatever it was, right? And America couldn't do nothing about it, right? It shot it down. The point I'm making is, no matter what they did to our people, I say our people because we with them. We've been with them. Ain't no sense of pretending like that don't mean you with them. I'm telling you, I'm with them. That's what I'm about. And been about it. What does all of this killing and destruction produce? At one time, they was hitting Iran so hard that they had a saying, every place is Karbala, right? And every day is Ashura. Ashura was when Imam Hussein was right here. And the sounds that even the students gave off here was a sound of stability. We're going to make it. When I came here from California one time after a demonstration, and I was out at the IAC, everybody, it was down at the State Department, down 19, yeah, when Iran Air was shot down. And after it, everybody went out to the IAC, that's out there in Potomac, Maryland. And I wasn't even in D.C. at that time, but I went and I watched. It was nothing there but Iranians at that time. And they had a certain attitude. And they said, they were saying to themselves, you shoot down our airliner, you do anything to us that you want, but we're coming through this. And I could see it. You could see it. They couldn't see it. Believe it or not, they used to ask me what they were thinking about and what they was doing, because I'm not uninvolved, but I'm an observer of all of this stuff going on. Right? I'm an observer of all this stuff going on. And they were solemn, right out there at IAC. They wasn't sad though. And they had just shot down, you could see the bodies that they had in the Persian, they shot down the vents and shot down the airliner. You know, you can see all the little kids floating around in the water. And America didn't even say, we didn't mean to do that. They meant to do it. Because the way airliners fly is different between military planes. When they coming up, they come up a certain way. And anybody in naval or warfare, they know how they fly. They knew they were shooting down that airliner. And they shot it down. And nobody over here, it was just Iran is bad, and that's that. Then they had an invasion of Lebanon a little before that. 40,000 people dead, right, in Lebanon. It's in 82. You think I'm jiving? The whole place destroyed. And it rebuilt itself. And then up popped Hezbollah, right? That's why we would say in 2006, when the Israelis going to run over there and mess with Hezbollah, what did Hezbollah do? Hezbollah combined, like if America and Israel have fourth and fifth generation weapons, Hezbollah combined second and third generation weapons that they had in a whole new configuration. And they whooped the Zionists behind. They whooped them so bad, tried to visualize and remember the Zionist men sitting on those big modern tanks, crying like babies. We can't find them. They got ghost stuff. Y'all remember we used to talk about that? You know, the Indians in America, American Indians, used to believe in a ghost shirt, that you put this shirt on and your enemies can't kill you. That's what they was talking about Hezbollah. We can't see them, right? They had tunnels, configurations. They anticipated what the Zionists was going to do. And they took what they had and combined it together in a whole new configuration. Out-of-date ancient weapons, and they combined them in a new configuration that helped them knock the Zionists out, whooped them like they were stealing something, right? That's Hezbollah. Hezbollah right today, they got all this boycott going on of oil. Who's helping Lebanon right now, right this minute? It's Hezbollah. They done already got their first shipment of oil. Now the next one and just got landed in Syria. What I'm trying to say is, dear believers, we're in a new configuration today. And I want to talk about the part we play in it. Okay, we're different. The struggle that we have here is somewhat different than the struggle that Iran has. But Iran is coordinating everything. Hey, people talk about dumb stuff about Iran is doing well. Do they make mistakes? Thousands of them. Who don't? But they're still here, right? They're still here. They're growing and developing in agriculture, in science, in engineering, and in technology. They're growing so fast because some of the best students in America and India and everywhere else they went was Iranian students. Let's call them Persians, and Persians got something in their mind. You could tell people that they never ruled nothing the way they think, you know what I mean? It's been so long since you and I didn't rule anything. It's been way back, Africa, I don't know, way back when, right? So we don't think a certain way. But if the Persian Empire, they didn't have it for thousands of years, sometime it's up, they have 200-300 years, they're not doing too good, then they come back up. This has been happening, remember biblical times? The handwriting on the wall, min tickle parisan or something like that, weighed and measured. That's from the Bible days, and that's in Iran. Remember Daniel in the lion's den? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? That's in Iran. That's when they passed the law. We don't want y'all praying your old stuff, and we're going to give you some new names. It's like the American, Johnny, Jimmy, you know, right? And they took their Jewish names and called them po' boys Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Now, all of y'all old Bible reading Negroes, you remember Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. We all remember them. But there was a story behind all of these things. They were in Persia. In 586 BC, when the Persians attacked Jerusalem, they brought Jews back, right, to Iran. You got Jews been in Iran now for 3,000 years, something like that, right? It's been a long time. They've been there. And guess what? They support the government. A few of them are run off to the Zionist state, but they got it good in Iran. They got to have it good. If they've been there that long and ain't nothing happened to them, right? And they live in Jewish communities and they got synagogues and all of that. So anyway, now look at it like this. In every episode of history, there's usually an example of somebody that do certain things, right? And they become a type of example for the world that they're living in at that time. So I'm trying to tell you, in America, that's what we're doing. No, that's not what we're doing. We've already done that. Psychologically, we done slapped the urine out of boss man, psychologically. They done did everything to us you could imagine. You can't imagine stuff that don't, everything that you look at, something going on behind it all the time. I just got up an hour ago because I went and got some nice coffee down at the Zionist stop, and it put me to sleep. Like all the other coffee I go by, the coffee put me to sleep. Now, it's different than most of the coffee you drink. It'd wake you up. You'd be ready to go. And I used to have a spot at the Zionist coffee joint for a couple of weeks, couple of months. Boy, I'd be juiced up, and then I'd be doing all my work. So all of a sudden, I'd get a cup of coffee, and it'd put me to sleep. It don't make no difference which one I go to now. They all put me to sleep. Okay. And then I had special coffee. For 20 years, I mix a good mix I used to mix. And it'd soup you up pretty soon, putting you to sleep. So just an hour before I came down here, I was asleep for an hour and a half or two. Why? Because of coffee. Of course, I just did a test. I said, let me go down and check and see if it juiced me up or put me to sleep. Because remember, when you talk about longevity and doing things over a long period of time, you have to get used to redundancy. Now, everything I'm telling you deals with redundancy. We done tried it 40 times, 50 times, 70 times. 5 times is just a little bitty, over and over and over again. Why? So that you know what you're talking about. This is a trial. It's a test. It's not no haphazardry. Why? Because we studied our people and we studied our movement. There's something always been missing from our movement here in America. The main thing was longevity. But when Dr. King was getting ready to go in his last speech, and he said, I've been to the mountaintop, but he says longevity has its place, right? But he was saying, I may not be here with you, but y'all gonna get to that place, wherever you're trying to get to. So he had got the word. Sometime the people send you the word, you're a dead nigga, and you know that's it. And that's the word he had got. You could see it on his face. It wasn't because he was tired. It was because he didn't got the word. And his whole lecture at that church down in Memphis give you a clear pattern because he's using the words. Longevity has its place. Everybody want to live a long time, but I've already seen this whole thing, and I have a feeling of how it's going to come out, right? And Malcolm said when him and King met, he called Dr. King, poor fella, he called him a glorious fool. But he also said, one thing about me and you, we dead men. This is what Malcolm told him. This was 3 years before before King got assassinated. One was assassinated in 1965, the other in 1968. Evidently, that was not the time for the rebellion to take shape. I believe that time is now. And I believe that its orientation is Islamic. And I believe that the people involved will have to be and have been over a long period of time. Remember, we called it recorders, archivists, chroniclers, right? Y'all remember them words? That's what we've been doing all of this time. We have been doing it and we have been living it all of this time. So when we look at the world, we look at it as though we have a certain job. The people in Yemen, hey man, cholera, all of that stuff, that's what they have to deal with. If you look at Iran, they haven't had a day's rest in I don't know how long. Okay. If you look at Syria, y'all ever see pictures? The whole place destroyed. Have you seen Iraq? It's destroyed. They just destroyed the whole place. America has destroyed our whole areas. Whole countries just laid waste. And then they leave. Right? And then they leave like, oh, okay, see y'all later. Iraq was the most impressive or progressive country in the Arab world. They printed books, or they wrote them in Egypt, as they used to say. They printed them in Lebanon, and they read them in Iraq. That's what, Iraq was during the late 70s, it was big time. It was the most progressive, well-educated, well-structured society in that part of the world, right? Under the Ba'ath Party. But they bit the bait. The U.S. told them, you attack them Iranians, and they did. This is the period. It was September 22nd, 1980, when they attacked. Nobody gave Iran the shit. They're not going to make it. They can't. Everybody's against them. And it didn't look like they would. But we had a different idea. And we told the brothers who was here, y'all going to make it. Y'all going to make it, and you're going to make it big time. And after that, you're going to become an example of what a revolution is, right? And you're going to establish a kind of economy in the backbone of society. And that's what's been happening. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Iran is a perfect place, but if you can stand up to boss man by yourself for decades, and then you help Syria, right? Then you help Lebanon, right? Look at Lebanon now. This is a second shipment. First they send the oil to Syria, get it hooked up, and then they drive it right on into Lebanon. Isn't that right? That's happening today. Who's doing it? Hezbollah is doing it. The party of God, right? What I'm trying to tell you is everybody that's with us or we're with them is holding on. And just like they're holding on overseas, with all that pressure on them, right? With all those people dying, we're holding on right here. We're doing our part right here, equal to theirs, but we got it different. Here we're totally surrounded. Some of the Iranian brothers that go back, they become TV commentators. Sometimes we used to be on at the same time. They said Imam Musa is saying that in America. We're saying it because when they was over here, they didn't say that. They felt it, but they didn't say it because they had to finish, get their PhD, whatever, and get on back home. And now they big time. They big shots back there. They say, I wouldn't do that if I was in America. Imam Musa is saying it and doing it. And guess what? Ain't nobody with us. And nobody here backed our play. Nobody. None of them. All the big talking coons that you see, all the big groups, you don't see none of them supporting us. But everything that we have been saying has came out step by step. Discombobulate boss man, right? Make a fool out of him, right? Make fun of him. Has those been the doers? I'm just saying, I'm asking, have those been the doers? Don't blow up America, or Allah, make them the laughing stock of the world. And all of a sudden you see Sam on the news, right? And everybody is scratching it. Why Sam do that? Why, right? That's all they talking about now on the news. And why? And they getting caught at everything. Everything is coming to a point now. That means the life that we're living has been meaningful. And guess what? It's going to be more meaningful in the future. Because no matter what happens to us, even when they try to divert them and play like they don't exist, we have enough of the message, right? Still intact. What's so important about redundancy? Even if they don't get the talks from today, they got them from 5, 10, or 15 years ago. And you know what they did? They said exactly the same thing we're saying now. That's redundancy. When you repeat the same thing over and over again, and then what's happening? It is happening right in front of everybody's eyes. Yeah, you can turn on the news. Everybody laughing at boss man. Hey man, discombobulated. Why is America doing that? Why did they do that? Why did they do it? Isn't that right? They're saying that now. You can't turn on, they are saying that. I'm going to try to put it like this. Dear believers, sometimes longevity means that you have to have stickability because our people don't believe in each other. We've been whooped so bad by boss man that we think when boss man says something that it's the law. Yes, we do. Yes, this is our idea. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. So we'll sit back and watch for 50 years. And a Negro calling all the shots, he called, that's going to be a 7, that's going to be 11, that's going to be, and over again. And they just sit back with their hands in their pocket. That's the Negro. You have to have the ability. There's a thing here we have. Project Imam Hussein in America. This is when my grandson was supposedly killed. And I was telling everybody, about the situation. And they just put their hands in their pockets, I'm talking about the Shias. See, because we put our life on the line for them. By the time the good ones was all gone back home and the coons was here, they got coon Iranians. Yes, they do. They got coon Iranians. They got coons that like, who's that little white lady, Medea Benjamin. One of the big ministers. He wanted to go to a big conference they was having amongst the revolutionaries in Syria, not long ago. And they told him, you stay there, one of the big ministers, you stay here and take care of your white folks' friends. That's when we knew they got it all. Because sometimes we be sitting here wondering, do they know this, do they know that? Right? Do they have this together? And then you just watch them. And then you listen to the new foreign minister. They said, this guy was our protege of Soleimani, right? And he went with him here and there, and he consulted with him, and now he's a foreign. See how everything works out? So now, the last 8 years, we had kind of bootlickers that didn't have a good self-image of who we are, what we're about, and we're going to survive. And they was bootlickers. And before that, we had a revolutionary. Now, the revolutionary is like a personal friend of mine when he was president. And he still is. I went to visit him and hang out with him for a while. And so I said, well, we want you to go on and run again. He said, well, we'll see, But this time they didn't let him run. and that was good. You know why it was good? Because if he ran right now, you need a unifying force right now, right? And maybe he need another 4 or 8 years, he's a young guy still, to study himself. He is accurate on everything. They think he was living here almost, but he wasn't. Then they thought we was telling them everything, because every time they'd have an interview with him, he would hit them with American facts. They said, that nigga, that ain't getting that stuff from somebody. Some coon over there hooking him up. But here's the point, dear believers. This is a different time. The last 40 years have been heroic years. They have been heroic. It's the only way I can call them heroic years. And now, the forces of good are not isolated and cut off. It was one time when they was all by themselves. All by themselves. Right? Remember during the Iran-Iraq war, Saudi Arabia, $50 billion. Kuwait, $33 billion. And they made this isolation so thick that even they couldn't buy, like you have smoke detectors in a place, right? They have these little utensils for poison gas. And Iraq was using poison gas. They couldn't even buy those from Yugoslavia at that time and other places. But they held on. I'm telling you now, so you understand, we're right now in a transition. It's clear as a bell. We're in that transition right now. And all of those people, whether it's Yemen that was brutalized by Saudi Arabia, right? And we see it on TV, but they're holding on. Something's going on, right? Lebanon been surrounded and hooked up and got criminals leading them and all of that. And finally, now they got a breakthrough. Right? They got a breakthrough. Some of the friends in one place is helping them. And it's not that they're doing it for credit from the Lebanese people, but the Lebanese government have lost credibility. And now another shadow government. It ain't even a shadow anymore. It's clear as a bell. The point I'm making is we're living in a new world right now. And we're going to play a part in that. We have been. We're not these bootlicking Negroes in ISNA and ICNA and all of that won't tell the truth. See, you can turn on the news right now and see what we've been telling everybody is the truth. And we've been doing our part. And what is our part? Here in America, you ain't got nothing, nigga. What you talking about? Well, yes, we do. You have to study your enemy. All this little stuff, it don't mean nothing to you. Don't mean a thing to you. Who's a real terrorist? This is the Devil's Triangle. This is from 89. Racism, apartheid, Zionism, the triangle of terror. This is what we call it, right? So what I'm telling you is that everything that we should be doing, we are doing. Everything within our reach, we're doing it with expertise. And we said we was going to do it from the very beginning. We're going to archive these boys, right? We're going to chronicleize them. We're going to historicize them, right? In other words, we're going to study them. That's what we've been doing. That's what we've been talking about. That's what we've done. And right now, the world is in a place that if you love Boss Man is a laughing stock of the world. They just laughing at him so hard, it's a shame. He can't do nothing right. If you think getting on the planes and trying to fly away and they getting run over was big, If you think them pushing the button and killing 7 children and 3 other of their own people is work for the American. Hey, man, here's what I'm trying to tell you. When things go bad, they're going bad. Things are bad for Sam. Things are bad for your master, the United States of America, right? And there's a whole shift going on today. The Yemenis have survived, right? So remember we talked about people survive a certain amount of time, they get a way to help each other. All of a sudden, they got the ships coming from Iran to Syria, and then they go right across the border to Lebanon. Isn't that right? And that's Hezbollah. What did we say a few weeks ago? We talked about the Berlin airlift, that eventually that they'll be, we call them not border runners, but you know, when you start blockade runners. Yeah. So we expect the Muslim world now to run those blockades, to feed the people of Yemen, running them blockades, speedboats, all that kind of stuff, right? Maybe a few helicopters now and then, but sending in medicine and food. So like the Berlin airlift, when they cut off when the Russians cut off the rest of Berlin in the old days, 1949, the United States ordered an airlift where they went over and they flew everything they needed into Berlin. And now Yemen becomes the Berlin of today. Blockade running, right? All the aid and support that Lebanon needs. Because you got to remember, Lebanon is the only one in the Arab world, they done whoop the Zionists. Every time they touch, the Zionists don't want to mess with them because they whoops they behind. Right? All right. And the Zionists are always talking about, we want to get our hands on Iran. Well, imagine the Pastoran, Revolutionary Guards, in the 80s went through Syria and they went to Lebanon. Remember, Lebanon used to be a part of Syria, Sham. They went to Lebanon and they taught the Lebanese how to fight. The Pastoran did. So technically, the student is whooping the Zionists behind. So you know they don't want to fight the teacher, right? Think about it. If the student is whooping the Zionists behind, you know they don't want to fight the one that's teaching them. That's why you hear all this tough talk from the Zionists. Zionists ain't going to bust a grape. No, they kill a lot of people. They got license to kill us. Like they got license to do what they do to Palestinians. Can you imagine? Nobody else in the world could treat other people like that. Everything they do is against their law. Right? Everything the Zionists do is against the UN law. But they can do it because they're Zionists. That's going to cost them. Don't worry about it. The Zionists got to go. And I'm not saying the Zionists don't like me, but I've been talking about them all this time and I'm still here. That's part of what we call psychological guerrilla warfare. See, remember, we don't have tanks and bombs. We can't do that. But we got that old Negro talk, selling wolf tickets, right? Yes, that's what we do. That's our job. And we've been doing good. And selling wolf tickets, we also forecast. Remember we talked about Muhammad Ali and Jack Johnson? We still use all that stuff. Muhammad Ali, Mo gonna fall in 4. Archie Moore, 4th round, he falls. We do the same thing to Boss Man. Yeah, and all y'all been here, so y'all done heard all this 100 times, and you turn on the news every now and then, and what do you see? Exactly what we said was going to happen to to boss man. Right? Exactly. Maybe with a little bit added. All right, so that's our part of the war. And I move toward a close. If we were in Palestine, we would have a different war. That would be our job to do what would be needed for Palestine. If we were in Iraq or in Iran or in Syria or any of those places, right, we should be doing the type of war that battlefield or that battle space calls for. We're here in America. There's no battlefield like that here in America, right? If you start blowing stuff up, where you going to hide? With the Negro, as soon as you get to the house, they didn't call the police on you. Boss man, my cousin is here. Them niggas just blew up, boss man. I hate to tell you, they the one that just blowed up to such and such. And on top of that, they got $50,000. Some of it came from Iranians. Some of it the niggas that told it, right? So you can't have that type of revolution here, right? Tell the truth. So what we had to do, and I moved toward a close, we had to psychologically destroy boss man. You just had a nerve to do it, that's all. It's like the old joke about all the animals got together because this cat, this lion or something was eating all the animals, you know. So they had a meeting, and they come up with, what we'll do is we'll put a bell on that cat or that lion, what have you. Right? He said, that's a perfect idea. Put a bell on him, a cowbell or something. When he come after you, everybody will know 100 miles away. Here he come, and we'd break out and run, right? Perfect idea. Bell the cat. So the question was now, who's going to put that bell on the lion? They call it belling the cat. Who's going to put the bell around that? Who's going to get up there, he's breathing that hot breath, all that stuff, right? And you put the bell on him. Who's going to do that? That's us. That was our job. That's what we've been doing. Who's going to bell the cat? This crooked, mean, time to go American government. Who's going to stand here in the center of America and in the capital, D.C., and talk out the side of their mouth? Boss man ain't nothing. Boss man a girl. Boss man this. Boss man that, right? And it comes out like that. And all boss man can do is secret stuff. You know what I mean? You get up and reading the Quran smells give you a headache. So you can't read that Quran today, especially in Ramadan when you're sensitive. So you have to go get another one to read. Why? Because boss man puts smelling sauce on your stuff. Simple as that. Or if you got cars, you have cars, you spend $1 zillion on cars. Because that's what boss men do. That's our job. We had a good job. I'm not saying it's an easy job, but compared to what other people have, right? This is a fun job. Just make it fun. This is fun. Nobody else do it. Nobody want to do it. Nobody can do it. Or let's say nobody won't do it, right? You can't get one of the Negroes, imams, to get up and cough in front of boss man. Tell the truth. He ain't going to do it. Right? But there is hope. There is the young people who are Muslim. The children of the people that came here. People that come here so glad to be here, they ain't going to say nothing. They're going to drive their cab, get their job, buy a business. They're going to send money back home. That's what they came here for. But their children are born here in America. Right? The kids that are in college now that are Muslim, what are they saying? They're different than just 5 years ago. Why? They're born in America. Hey, what are you messing with us for? You ain't got no right to do that. Their parents wouldn't say it. Their parents duck. Good God Almighty, I don't want to talk that way to boss man. Why, he'll send me back home or something, right? But they're kids, right? So those kids in a few years, they'll be right in here, maybe a few months. We'll be right back on the road with them. Yeah, because that's the time. So the message is the same old message. 95% of ability is stickability, the ability to hold on. Remember, we never had the opportunity here in America that our brothers had overseas in China and other places. When they had a revolution or rebellion, they had years to interact. And they could hide in the bushes. They could hide in Sierra Madres, like in Cuba, right? And all of that. You can't hide nowhere over here. Because if you hide in a Negro's house, the Negro gonna have, you hide at the police, better hide at the police station. Tell the truth. I mean, this is just a reality, right? So what we had to do here was, we ain't gonna hide. We coming out in the open, we gonna talk trash, because this is how you discombobulate your people. Why? He loves to be respected, right? And we disrespect him. Sucker, you ain't nothing talking that mess. You know, I do this, blah, 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 blah. Well, of course you don't have the power to do nothing, but boy, that mouth make him mad. It make him mad, and he stay mad. But when you get mad, you start punching all wild and stuff, right? You think you're throwing them right to the gut, right to the head, but you're throwing them wild. And plus, the people that's doing it to you can anticipate what you're going to do. So what we're fighting here, we're fighting boss man the way he need to be fought, not the way they think we ought to fight it. We're not going to get lost in other revolutions and strategies. The people would bring revolutionary books and set them down. They're beautiful books on strategy, the whole history of rebellions. I mean, from Greek times up to now, to the Vietnam War. And we read that. I said, man, it's a good book. But we changed it from guerrilla war to psychological guerrilla war. We're not going to go fight boss man. Boss man got, right here in the city, he got tanks, machine guns, hidden stuff all around, right? So you're going to go fight somebody the way they want you to come? You come right down the street, you do this, and fight me. Heck no, boss man. We're going to talk about you because you're arrogant, and so we're going to make fun of you. An arrogant person like the Zionists. You notice how the Zionists really hate us? Because we got their number. Their number is they're arrogant. We tell everybody in the world what to do, right? Remember Netanyahu come here and talk before Congress, and and he talked about Obama like he was a dog, and he's the president of the United States, right? And he come over here, and old Joe, if he can stay awoke for an hour or two, Joe need his nap. He like Reagan. Reagan could talk presidential talk, but he needed a rest. He was old too. So when you get older, you know this old Joe, remember in the election time coming, he used to run up to the stage. You ain't seen him run up to no stage lately, tell you too. And you know that hair, it was already thin, boy, but he gonna have to get some stuff tied in his head, like old Don or something, because he'll be bald-headed next week, right? And he's giving out. You see him sitting up in meetings, he heads out. Why? Because you could do the work, but you need a nap. You need a noontime nap, and you need an afternoon time nap when you get that old, right? So, they don't want us. The last thing I want to say is, nobody can make the white man as mad as the Negro. Tell the truth. We just know how to make him mad. Have you ever seen White boys don't play the dozens. Of course, y'all remember what the dozens are. That mama talk. I remember I was watching a movie about the people over in Virginia, the young brothers that was playing ball real good. And they had one scene where the Negro is playing the dozens with one of the star white boys, and the white boy not used to it. So the other white boy came up to him and said, "Man, I got your mama on my back." Because this white boy knew what playing the dozens was. But the other white boy is like when I was 12 years old and I first went to the pen, the little white boys, if you talked about their mama, that's when I realized, they were trying to break out of the cell. That's my mama. And you couldn't do that, right? If you play in the dozens and you start hollering, you lose. Right? You just have to come back. Everybody loved their mother. Well, one of our singers said, nobody loves me but my mother, but she might be jiving too. That's B.B. King, I think. You never know. Anyway, playing the dozens is something that we grew up doing. So when you fight a war, you use the things that God gives you. Like David used the sling to kill Goliath, right? Because he used it all the time to run lions away. In that time, lions was up in the Middle East and everywhere. Right? That's what he did. We use what Allah give us here. It don't make no difference what other people think. We're still here and we're alive. And we got our first set of writings and ready to come out with our second set. We haven't even published. We got them printed up. But our first set of writings on what to do, we haven't even put them out. We're going to put out the second section later, right? And all of it will be manifested. Dear believers, we got a lot to say, but I'm not going to say it. The other thing is, this is from 10 years ago, Decline and Fall of America. That's from 10 years ago. How to Punk the FBI, right? How to Punk the FBI. Remember that? That's a lot of fun. You ain't said nothing about how to punk the FBI, neither's nobody else. But I have, because that's my job, and I like it. And I'm over 70 years, I'm almost 76 years old. I'll be 80 years old in a little while. What I need to be around for longevity, I haven't been here longer than anybody else. All the other people from my time is dead or crazy. And they're not standing up. Tell the truth. All the people from the Black Panther days, the Big Hustler days, they all gone. They all gone. So it's just like I get a chance to be the star of my own show. We're going to call it the Imam Musa show. That's what we're going to call it, yes. What's on today, Imam Musa? It's going to be like Saturday Night Live or something. Yeah, you know. Except it's the fall guy is Boss Man. Yeah, we're going to high side on Boss Man. And we're going to try not to hurt his feelings. But we're going to sure mess up his future role. So we thank you very much for being patient enough to listen. You got to have courage to listen to this stuff, because other people, you don't see nobody coming by. They've taught, stay away from that masjid. Don't go there, right? You want to keep your visa, you better stay away from over there, right? You want to keep your little handouts that you're getting, you better stay away from over there. Masjid al-Islam, that Imam Musa talking that bop. Oh Allah, we seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief. We seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness. We seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardliness. We seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. O Allah, suffice us with what is lawful. Keep from us what is prohibited. With thy grace, make us free from want of what is beside thee. Ameen. He cometh this salam.